All right. Shalom to each and every one of you. Namaste. I hope you guys have been blessed and experiencing and consciousness has been bringing some signs, some manifest for you. My goodness, there's just so much that's going on and it's happening so fast, and all over the world, everything is gone crazy, and people's minds are going crazy, and people's minds are enlightening, and there's peace, and yet there's horrible chaos, and it just, if it's not one thing, it's five others right now. We truly are in a really significant time. But I would like to say to each and every one of you that really, to be quite honest, to make sure that we're not naive, that is exactly the way that things work. When something powerful, profound is going on, then you always have the other side. Remember, everything, there's always the two ends of the scale. When Yeshua came, the significance of the truth that he brought, at the same time, so the great light had come to the earth, and yet what's happening? Rome is destroying all of Israel. So it's not really, we are exactly living in the time of Yeshua yet again. And just to get off on a little side note here, it was really kind of amazing last night. I happened into a thing just to share those of you who have interest in such things. They have uncovered recently some hidden cave yet again. It's been hidden from us. They've had it a while. They've been working on it. And so this isn't, I don't think, part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it was found in a cave in that area. And so it was packaged a little bit differently. It was a scroll that was inside of some really high quality cloth, and then it was dipped in a wax. So the whole thing was like completely hermetically sealed. And when they cracked it open and began to roll it out and began to look at it and begin to study it, the first thing they noticed is that this scroll was written totally in Aramaic. There was no Greek in it, there was no Latin in it, there was no pure Hebrew in it, there was Aramaic. And for those of you who may not understand that, that would have been the common everyday language that the people in Israel at that time would have spoken. And so as these scholars started, because it's an ancient sacred document as far as we're concerned because of the antiquity of it, and they begin to roll it out, and as they begin to roll it out and decipher what was being said, at the top of it, it said to Yaakov. And for those of you who may know, Yaakov was the brother James of Yeshua, and he was very prominent. Much of the Essenes writings were about Yaakov, the teacher. Even more so than Yeshua. You know from Saudi that Yeshua and Yaakov and John the Baptist were all functioning in that area at that time. So all of those things for you might help you establish. The beauty of it is that as they begin to read this, roll it out and read it, they absolutely believe now that this is, as far as we know at this point, the only written document that Yeshua himself by his own hand wrote to his brother. And the scholars are marveling because there was nothing in it about any of the things. He was actually voicing concerns to James about what was going to happen and giving him encouragement after he was gone, and all of this stuff, man. It's just like as human as it can be. There was no God, there was no miracle, there was no supernatural. He was talking to James about the burden that James had to carry the word after he was gone. And, you know, encouraging him that he had to be very careful about who he shared the truth with, which James did. And so that I don't think that they've completely interpreted the whole scroll yet, but the scholars were absolutely blown away because there was no Christian Jesus in the only document that we know of that exists on the earth, if in fact it proves out to be, that was actually left by Yeshua for his brother, and there's zero Christianity in it anywhere. So I think I said that to kind of bring us to a place tonight. I don't know how many of you, of those that will come around, and of course, sources has to be all of that. But why this thing that we're reading? Because it is massively. Mariana said that this is like doing a college course, and really, to be honest with you, it actually is, but it would be closer to like a master's degree course, because she was so intelligent that the mass majority of common people would be like Yeshua going, well, all I did is gave them a parable because they couldn't understand what I was saying if I said it anyways. And so I do want to apologize to you. She is speaking over most people's heads, but if you get any good out of it, and if you come away with a different perspective, that's a word that's popping up over and over again in this time that we're living in. Part of the shift, which is the remembering, and I could go into a 5-hour teaching here about we're not being enlightened. All of the things that we started are totally not important anymore. And all of the stuff that people are trying to do to prove they're spiritual is a waste of time. And so it's quite amazing that all of these people knew this, and yet here we are in the year 2025, and we're even trying to figure out how would you properly define spirituality in this society. The mass majority of people have no idea. And so I just felt like that was something for those of you maybe you're still holding on to the 6-pound, 7-ounce baby Jesus that was born supernaturally, miraculously from a virgin woman and all of that. It was all metaphor. None of it happened like that, nor did he ever say that it did. And so he certainly was a Brahmin, and I've tried to expose you to some of the Vedic stuff because inevitably part of what Helena's trying to do for us is she's trying to bring all of the religions together so that you understand before a certain point the main teachings, and it's true of Christianity. That's why I'm showing you so much mysticism in Christianity, because before Rome and Catholicism, the Christians of that day that Paul's talking about at Antioch, all of those people are Christian Gnostics. And that's why Paul's writings are so Gnostic, because it was all cosmic. They understood. When he's talking about the resurrection, I still hear there's still people putting things on YouTube about the rapture's happening 5 days from now. And so, there's millions of those. You have them in your family that are never going to change, and don't waste your time to try to change them. I wish that I could sit and spend hours with people trying to help them, because some of this stuff really changes everything and how you view everything and what you care about and what you no longer care about. And it's really important to have it, but there's a process that each individual person is going to have to go through, or it's never going to ring true. It's never going to be your belief system. And you will find out that word that I just used, belief, properly defined, totally changes everything that you believed. And so, anyways, I just wanted to kind of set the stage for you. She is bringing out things. She is in the middle of a contention, okay? Christianity and all of the other religions have been lying and manipulating to people for 2,000 years, okay? And she knows it. The veil that ISIS is the hidden truth that has always existed with humanity, and where about half of the things that are written in the Bible came out of were mysticism, and if you could recognize it as mysticism, then they changed it. And so you have to understand some things before you really begin to see these pieces that I've been sharing with you about what the Bible is and what it's not. And once you know those things, it's very obvious to see that the Bible is a corrupted mystic text done to hide it from you. And it's worked phenomenally. Look how many billions of people have lived and died that studied the Bible till their heart's content. They read it over and over again, and yet none of them ever found true enlightenment. It's kind of crazy if you stop and think about it. That's why what's going on right now is going on. And so as we go through, maybe if you could try to, if you do come, maybe you can try to come with the perception that I may not understand a lot of this, but I am going to try to glean what I can glean. And as if you believe in source, then you know that whatever source puts in front of you, good, bad, indifferent, is all for a purpose. And I don't know if you've begun that part of your journey yet, but until you do, nothing's really going to make a lot of sense to you, because when you begin to have the paradigm and perspective shift that everything, there is no coincidence, and that's used by a lot of spiritual people as a cliche. And yet then you stand and talk to them, and before it's over with, you hear coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. So if you believe that there is no coincidence, then you get up in the morning and you kick your toe on the bed, and instead of being mad because you kicked your toe on the bed, you're joyful because you know that Source has already given you a situation this morning for you to overcome. And so what really is being exposed, at least in my journey, is infinitely larger than what most people think all of this is about. While it was horrible today, somebody expressed and shared with me about Charlie Kirk getting shot. And from a human standpoint, it is a travesty. I mean, these people have lost their freaking minds, folks. I mean, I apologize, and I'm not trying to drop no F-bombs or anything, but I just got to be honest with you, man. These people are crazy. About half of our society is literally spiritually lost their minds. And so, you know, they shoot a guy with a very clear, they bought a better sniper than they did with Donald Trump. They didn't want Trump to die. The only reason he didn't die is because they really didn't want him to die. Okay? And so that's difficult. Maybe, once again, it's back to the reality of who Source is and who we are in Source. And I could say some things that would make your mind fry right now, and it wouldn't benefit you, so I'm not going to. Just suffice to understand that the picture and the perspective that is coming for those people who will be, they're already enlightened, but they will walk into the fullness of it. And so for you, I would like to say to you that if you have been looking for enlightenment, stop. Finding enlightenment is not what it's all about. In fact, really, it has zero to do with what it's about. And so all of these things that people are doing, I still hear the chatter, I still hear the noise, and it comes from all kinds of places. And to be honest with you, it just means less and less and less and less. None of it means anything. I am already. I don't need to wait for that. I don't need for you to tell me that I can be that. I already am that. And unfortunately, for those that don't know, and fortunately for those that do, so are you. how that plays out takes a little bit more time, but it really, the deception is growing immensely. The power that we should be possessing is growing immensely. And so if you can wrap your veil around those little thin statements that are just one-liners that are thrown out there, and begin to pray and meditate on them, you might be really surprised at what your higher self, the one that already is, might tell you. And so that's another story. But so she's constantly dragging things from our world into a larger conversation. And just so you know, her next book and the other 13 that she wrote are all about the reality of a spiritual being and what it all really is. And she's teaching now that the teachings that we call mysticism were handed to the very earliest of people. And they're finding this out in the as AI continues to interpret ancient Sanskrit and the things that are going on in Egypt right now. They are interpreting that stuff, and it is all 100% spiritual mind mysticism. Nobody believed anything but that until 312, when Christianity was programmed. And so Islam came after that to the largest part. And so she's trying to get us to get a hold of that there is you couldn't even call it a conspiracy theory, although because now it's very obvious that it is a conspiracy fact, that we have been intentionally deprogrammed into stupidity so that we know nothing about anything, and they give us all kinds of things that we make really important because we have nothing else to exist with. If you were truly functioning in the spirit realm, none of the things that are enticing to you now would be enticing to you. In fact, they would become putrid to you. That's why Yeshua could walk as he did. He did not need anything because he already knew that he already possessed everything. And it's funny, one made this statement. He said, quit trying to manifest, quit watching videos about how to make yourself rich, because all you're doing is exposing how impoverished that you are inside, that's the only thing that you're looking for, is how you can enrich yourself. Every one of us are already functioning every single day in manifestation. So what your life is today, you created yesterday with the words that came out of your mouth. And I'm starting, and the things that were in your heart, the things that you truly believed. Like when you say things about how much you don't have, and say things about how bad your day was, and all you're doing is programming tomorrow, and the universe listens to you, and then guess what happens? You have a bad day. You got exactly what you wanted. And you say, well, I didn't want that. I really said all those things, but I really wanted things to get better. You have to learn how to function by the rules, not universe bow to your rules. And so when I say that all of the stuff that's gone on and all of the stuff that most spiritual people are teaching is really a lot of rubbish. It's not important. I don't give a crap if you see colors or don't see colors. They're not going to help you. Okay? It's not going to help you that you had some mindgasm. What's important is that you understand who you are and you awaken to that. That is what the awakening is about, is who you are. In fact, so much so that it's actually called a remembering, because you made a covenant when you came in initially that to forget everything that you knew. And so as I said, this gets into 25 hours worth of teachings. But if source is willing, inevitably in time I will do those. But so we left off last week, and maybe 2 weeks ago, and she was filling us in on some pieces, and so I'm going to jump in. Most of you probably don't have the book. Those of you that do, I hope you marked where we left off. And the book is more than just 2 pages and put it down thing, or you will never understand anything. It's just too deep, friends. This universe and what's going on right now is the only thing that should be important, and yet I find that to a lot of people, it's the least important thing. They still want Christianity. They still want a cheap, easy religion that they can be mindless about, learn a few little rules like 10 commandments. What a joke. Learn 10 commandments, and you just, as long as you live within those 10 commandments, God's happy with you. And it's one of the biggest farces that's ever existed on humanity. Those things should be happening as a side effect. They should not even be consciousness to you. And yet, it was what they could give you that you would lock your consciousness that you had, or maybe more so programmed into your subconscious from Sunday school on, to that was really important, and that's what you needed to focus on. And the reality of it is there are universal laws that will never appear in a Christian document, and you break those, and you will never experience what is intended for you. So once again, another 20 hours worth of teaching to get to that point for those inevitably that will be interested in learning. Yeshua told us about this. He said, it's those that come to me and go through all the crap they have to go through to learn that stay with me. If you're just looking for a parable, then that's a totally different story. And so I'm going to pick up. We left off, and this is a statement that she makes. She's been talking about the divine spirit in us, which animates, and she's been sharing this. And so I'm going to pick up right here. She says, that profoundly significant verse of the Genesis, and just so you know, though they call her a witch and all of these things, an occultist, which you probably thought had to do with demon worship, and it doesn't at all. In fact, most of the people in theosophy that I know of quote the Bible more than people in Christianity do, because it was an ancient text. They also know the corruptions that are in it. And so she says, you remember that profoundly significant verse of the Genesis, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, I give a living soul. Now, I'd never seen this. It hit me right between the eyes like a sledgehammer. What I just read to you says should arrest the attention of every Hebrew scholar capable of reading the scriptures in its original instead of following the erroneous translation in which the phrase reads, wherein there is life. So this is out of the beginning. It's one of the major statements in the book of Genesis that tells us about humans and direction and all of these things. And because she can read, I think it was 9 languages she can read, so you're not going to probably trip her up. She gets it. And so she says, from the first to the last chapters, the translators of the Jewish sacred books misconstrued this meaning. They have even changed the spelling of the name of God, as Sir W. Drummond proves. Thus, El, that we have been told our whole life. We've sang songs about El and all kinds of things to El, right? And she says, thus, L, if written correctly, would read owl. And I always wondered why the Jews say L and the Muslims say owl. And she explains this. So the L, if written correctly, would read owl, for it stands in the original Hebrew as aleph, okay? The A in the Hebrew script stands for owl. And according to Higgins, this word means the god Mithra, which is one of the gods they condemn as being a pagan god. And what they don't tell you is that they have intentionally misled you to worship the god Mithra. The sun. Mithra is the sun god. The preserver and savior. Doesn't that sound familiar? Sir W. Drummond shows that Bethel means the house of the sun in its literal interpretation. Okay? Not the house of God. And not of God. El in the composition of these Canaanite names does not signify deus. It signifies soul. And soul is sun. So when you see the winter solstice, you immediately know when you see SOL, it has to do with the sun. And thus, theology has disfigured ancient theosophy and science, ancient philosophy. Theology has disfigured ancient theosophy. Theosophy, we're reading a book that we're looking at the science and we're looking at the spirit. That is theosophy. And so it has disfigured that by telling you about this other God with a totally different thing. And so the whole time, I quit doing this because I found what was called the pagan origins of the sunrise service is actually exactly what she's saying right here, friends. It is her words in action in the Christian church. You get up, you go face east, you look at the thing, it has to do, you say, with the S-U-N, when in reality, and the S-O-N, when in reality, you are doing nothing but worshiping the sun when you go on a morning and stand and call it something to do with Jesus. They laugh at your ignorance. And so, for lack of comprehension of this great philosophical principle, the methods of modern science, however exact, must end in nullity. In no one branch can it demonstrate the origin and ultimate of things. You understand what's going on here? There is a huge battle, and it's still functioning today, between science and spirit. And science says they can tell you everything about the world and tell you everything about humanity through science. They do not need the spirit, nor will they even entertain the spirit in scientific realms. Don't believe me? Go talk to a scientist and try to put God in his makeup of the world. They will tell you it's all a lie. And so, funny how things have a way of making a huge circle. And so, in no one branch can it demonstrate the origin and ultimate of things. And that's exactly where we are now. If you are headed where I'm headed, has to do with what is the truth about the truth. And instead of tracing the effect from its primal source, okay, its progress is the reverse. and higher types, as it teaches, are all evolved from antecedent lower ones. It starts from the bottom of the cycle and led on step by step in the great labyrinth of nature by a thread of matter. Okay? And if you buy that, wonderful. As soon as this breaks and the clue is lost, it recoils in affright from the incomprehensible and confesses itself powerless. That's why scientists can only go so far, and then they go so far, and then they have nowhere to go, and everything just happened, but we don't know what it is that's happening. And so they just stop researching. They stop looking. One of the differences of that might be an archaeologist, because archaeologists have something inside of them that's calling them to continue to go back further and further and further and further, and that's how we find that all of it is a bunch of bunk, and there's been people on this earth for 200 plus thousand years, which you can't explain, nor can your mind even get around it. We are massively ancient as a species. And you're going to find out, if not this week, next week, where this whole 6,000 year thing that the Jews convinced you was reality, that it's really nothing but a blatant lie. And so it can't explain anything except what it can explain, and when it can't explain anymore, then irrespective of everything continues to go on, there's no answer about how it's going on, or even really what it is. You know, many people believe that the time we live in is proof of the things that I've shared and others are sharing about the time we are in society, because for the first time, 200 years from her, or 100 years from her to us, a little over 100 years, and all of a sudden, quantum physics is now recognizing that out there from nowhere, they can access the Akash, and that the spirit realm is what answers the quantum computer's questions, is coming from the spirit realm. So it's starting to break this paradigm she's fighting against down. She wanted people who had a desire to know what the truth is to know that that was a lie. Because as long as you believe that nonsense, you sit mindlessly doing nothing, and the universe lets you. See, it's really strange, my journey of trying to learn and understand the universe. How does the universe work? It has been really, really, really mind-boggling, and everything is upside down, and nothing is what you think it is, and yet when you find it, it all of a sudden begins to make sense. And so, not so did Plato and his disciples. With him, the lower types were but the concrete images of the higher abstract ones. And so here's where you get Trismegistus words coming in, that as inside, so outside, as below, so above. So when you look at a human, that would tell you that there is a species in the heavenlies of which we are the basest form of, or picture of, I might say. Okay? There are other sky beings. There really were Anunnaki, and there really have been other people that have flown around, and now we may be fixing, hopefully very soon, we're going to encounter one for the real, if you've been paying any attention to 3I. And so, Plato and his disciples, with him, the lower types were but the concrete images of the higher abstract ones. The fact that I'm here is proof that there's someone there. The fact that you're here is proof that there is someone there, or something. The soul, which is immortal, has an arithmetic, okay? We are Geometry is everything. There's all kinds of stuff now that comes into this, and mathematicians, and we have no clue that the world is built and everything is designed out of math. Whether you know it or not, the satanic people, the secret societies, really, to be honest with you, all the secret societies is the people who know all the things that you don't know. None of it deserves to be scared by. And so we are mathematical beings. Geometry has everything to do with everything. Euclid has everything to do with everything. Pythagoras has everything to do with everything. In fact, that is how we would properly say we define the world through mathematics. And so the soul, which is immortal, has an arithmetical, as the body has a geometrical beginning. This beginning, as the reflection of the great universe, is self-moving, and from the center diffuses itself over the whole body of the microcosm. From the center of you is then diffused your spirit over the whole body. It was the sad perception of this truth that made Tyndale, y'all know Tyndale, he's one of the huge publishing companies that publish Bibles by the millions, that made Tyndale confess how powerless science was. So he was functioning in the 1800s, 1700s, sometime in there, and he knew that it's useless. It doesn't answer the questions. Even over the world of matter. The first marshalling of the atoms on which all subsequent action depends baffles a keener power than that of the microscope. Through pure excess of complexity, and long before observation can have any voice in the matter, the most highly trained intellect, the most refined and discipled imagination retires in bewilderment from the contemplation of the problem. We are struck dumb by an astonishment which no microscope can relieve, doubting not only the power of our instrument, but even whether we ourselves possess the intellectual elements which will ever enable us to grapple with the ultimate structural energies of nature. We can't, there's more that we don't know than that we ever will know, at least at this level. So the fundamental geometrical figure of the Kabbalah, that figure which tradition and the hidden doctrines tell us was given by the deity itself to Moses on Mount Sinai, contains in its grandiose but simple combination the key to the universal problem. That figure contains inside itself all of the others. For those who are able to master it, there is no need to exercise imagination. No earthly microscope can compare with the keenness of the spiritual perception. For some of you, maybe you've started a little bit. There's a lot going on in the spirit realm, man. The last 2 or 3 days have been really, really heavy, super dense spiritually. And so as we continue along, you should, as you come to consciousness of your consciousness, you should in fact experience, even if it's not manifold huge, you still should be recognizing in your spirit realm synchronicities, and you should be having some deja vus, or you think about somebody and they call you, or those kind of things, and they're going to become more and more commonplace. So if you're not experiencing that, please don't fake it to try to look spiritual. Just wait and go with the flow. You're not ready for what Source gives to people, and it's been one of the greatest things that I've been putting my mind towards, and that is that simple fact that because we don't understand what truth is, we have all kinds of presupposed lies that we function as truth, and they all lead us someplace other than where the truth is. That's why the scripture says many of the things that it says. And so we don't even have the ability to deal with the energies of nature, much less the energies of spirit. And so the fundamental geometric figure of the Kabbalah, that figure which tradition and the esoteric doctrines tell us was given by the deity itself to Moses on Mount Sinai, contains in its grandiose, because simple combination, the key to the universal problem. This figure contains in itself all of the others. For those who are able to master it, there is no need to exercise imagination because you actually know what the truth is. No earthly microscope can be compared with the keenness of the spiritual perception. And even for those who are acquainted with the great science, the description given by a well-trained child psychometer of the genesis of a grain, a fragment of crystal, or any other object is worth all the telescopes and microscopes of exact science. There may be more truth in the adventurous pangenesis of Darwin, whom Tyndale calls a soaring speculator, than in the cautious, line-bound hypothesis of the latter, who, in common with other thinkers of his class, surrounds his imagination by the firm frontiers of reason. The theory of a microscopic germ which contains in itself a world of minor germs soars in one sense at least into the infinite. It oversteps the world of matter and begins unconsciously busying itself in the world of spirit. One way you can begin to see this, if you're a gardener, have you ever stood and looked at your rose bush and marveled at all that it would take to make this dumb plant that has no life in it other than it's living in the ground, and it's so stupid that it can't do anything but just stand there, and yet it can produce something as beautiful as a rose. Okay? If we could even begin that one situation to understand it, do you not think there would be roses? I'm not talking about going in and genetically orchestrating. I'm talking about creating from base a rose or any other plant. We can't do that. We take plants that were created by consciousness and we screw them up by genetically engineering them. Thank you very much, science. Now people know that. They don't want GMO. You see it all over things in the grocery store and in the health store. Non-GMO. Well, I thought it was the best thing that ever happened to humanity that we learned how to genetically modify something. And they make corn that's twice as big and grows in half the time and is 10 times yellower and uses less water and less days before they can harvest. All of these wonderful benefits, and yet we then find out it's the most horrible thing for the human body that exists. So, not everything that seems to be one thing is that thing. And so, there may be more truth in the pangenesis of Darwin, whom Tyndale calls a soaring speculator. I don't think Darwin was right about everything, but it's quite obvious that evolution has always existed. Not in the pattern that he sold it as. So please be clear about that. And so the theory of a microscopic germ, which contains in itself a world of minor germs, soars in one sense at least into the infinite. It oversteps the world of matter and begins unconsciously busying itself in the world of spirit. If we accept Darwin's theory of the development of species, we find that its starting point is placed in front of an open door. We are at liberty with him to either remain within or to cross the threshold, beyond which lies the limitless and the incomprehensible, or rather the unutterable. If our mortal language is inadequate to express what our spirit dimly foresees and point in the timeless eternity. Not so with Professor Huxley's theory of the physical basis of life. Regardless of the formidable majority of nays from his German brother scientist, he creates a universal protoplasm and appoints its cells to become henceforth the sacred founts of the principle of all life. By making the latter identical in living man, dead mutton, a nettle sting, a lobster, by shutting into the molecular cell of the protoplasm the life principle, and by shutting out from it the divine influx which comes with subsequent evolution, he closes every door against any possible escape. Like an able tactician, he converts his laws and facts into sentries whom he causes to mount guard on every issue. The standard under which he rallies them is inscribed with the word necessity. But hardly is it unfurled when he mocks of the legend and calls it an empty shadow of my own imagination. So she's dealing with a scholar that is attacking her, but she's making a point in the middle of that being done. I won't say what the guy is full of, but in essence, that's what she's saying. And so, the fundamental doctrines of spiritualism, he says, lie outside the limits of philosophical inquiry. We will be bold enough to contradict this assertion and say that they lie a great deal more within such inquiry than Mr. Huxley's protoplasm, insomuch that they present evident and palpable facts of the existence of spirit and the protoplasmic cells, once dead, present none whatever of being the originators or the basis of life, as this, one of the few foremost thinkers of the day, wants us to believe. The ancient Kabbalists rested upon no hypothesis till he could lay its basis upon the firm rock of recorded experiment. But the too great dependence upon physical facts led to a growth of materialism, which, just so you know, that is the battle between materialism and spiritualism, and it's being fought today. So it is very relevant. And the decadence of spirituality and faith. At the time of Aristotle, this was the prevailing tendency of thought, and though the Delphic commandment was not as yet completely eliminated from Grecian thought, and some philosophers still held that in order to know what man is, we ought to know what man was. Still, materialism has already begun to gnaw at the root of faith. The mysteries themselves have degenerated in a very great degree into merely priestly speculations and religious feud. Few were the true adepts and initiates, the heirs and the descendants of those who had been dispersed by the conquering sword of various invaders of old Egypt. The time predicted by the great Hermes in his dialogue with Scapius had indeed come. The time when impious foreigners would accuse Egypt of adoring monsters, and naught but the letters engraved in stone upon her monuments would survive. The cool thing is all of the monuments that have survived are now starting to be interpreted by AI, and every time they interpret something, it blows people's minds about what it is. So, the time when impious foreigners would accuse Egypt of adoring monsters and nothing but the letters engraved in stone upon her monuments would survive. Enigmas incredible to posterity. Their sacred scribes and hierophants were wanderers upon the face of the earth, obliged from fear of a profanation of the sacred mysteries to seek refuge amongst the Hermetic fraternities, known later as the Essenes. So it's really funny because this would quite shock you if you found out that what the Freemasons are in the concept of Freemasonry is exactly the same thing that is the concept of the Essenes. And when you then put together the fact that Yeshua was trained in the Essenes, he was trained in mysticism. He wasn't a little bit knowledgeable about mysticism. He lived his whole life learning how to do witchcraft and magic according to our time, and even carried that on for 15 years outside of Israel, learning at the deepest levels how to manipulate matter. See, when Yeshua tells you that if you could, he's saying you're ignorant and unlearned, but I'm not. I know if I look at that mountain and tell that mountain to move, I know that it will move for me. You have no idea of such reality. And here we have people who've been in church their whole life and no concept of the power that you're supposed to be manifesting. That's what everything Yeshua says that's true. Everything that he said says that's true. These signs will follow those that believe. If you do not have signs to show, you do not believe the truth. Because one is the other. Sorrowful, that's the truth. It's not a fussing, it's not a condemning, it's not a shaming anybody. You have no reason to be ashamed of anything. You have been massively lied and deceived your whole life. The problem is now that the truth is coming out, what are you going to do with it? That's what every channeler is speaking about. What are you going to do with the truth that is being given to you? Nothing or something. And so, they were obliged from fear of a profanation of the sacred mysteries to seek refuge amongst the Hermetic fraternities known later as the Essenes. Their esoteric knowledge was buried deeper than ever. So all of the stuff that you heard about Yeshua not teaching people, guys, you ain't got a concept. He walked by and threw a breadcrumb out the whole 3 years he was teaching. He never revealed the truth, except to Mary and maybe a few of his other disciples. And when you begin to allow yourself to recognize that this isn't accidental, that you don't know anything about the world, hopefully you will then be able to find inside of yourself a desire to know something about all of the things that you know nothing about, which costs you excessively. And so, the triumphant brand of Aristotle's pupil swept away from his path of conquest every vestige of a once pure religion, and Aristotle himself, the type and child of his epoch, though instructed in the secret science of the Egyptians, knew but little of this crowning result of millennia of esoteric studies. As well as those who lived in the days of the Semitics, our present-day philosophers lift the veil of Isis, for Isis is but the symbol of nature. So they told you in church that all of these Egyptian gods were these horrible things, and it's funny that the God who told you not to worship any of them is one of the most horrible, mean, and ruthless gods that was ever created. He didn't tell you that because they were bad and evil. He told you they were bad and evil so you wouldn't worship them. Because they weren't. They were the truth. He had to hide that for his people, Israel. And so the veil of Isis, for Isis is but the symbol of nature. Now you can understand. See, the veil of Isis did not exist with the American Indians until the white man came along and ruined them, just like Catholicism ruined the early part. And when you get to the end of it, it's all Christianity. It's actually a means by which to force you away from the truth. You can believe that or not. I don't care if you're a Christian. For Isis is but the symbol of nature, but they see only her physical forms. The soul within escapes their view, and the Divine Mother, some of you are coming to this enlightenment, you think Mother Earth. I know a couple that think Mother Earth every day. And well, we should. I mean, that's where when we need to release those buildup of energy in us, we are to send them back to our mother. So funny. And has no answer for them. There are anatomists who, uncovering to sight no indwelling spirit under the layers of muscles and a network of nerves, or the cicatricious matter, which they lift up with the point of a scalpel, they assert that man has no soul. If you can believe that. Now, I say thank goodness for Christianity at that level, at least for those who were raised in the belief system I was, because there was a form of spirituality, though corrupted. They were fighting to get out of the matrix, and because of the other doctrine that they still held dear, they could never break away. I've said of my grandfather who did have signs following him. It wasn't a question of if he knew that God was there. He was functioning in God constantly, even as an uninitiate Christian. Why? Because he's already full consciousness. And he was. And now his life, which was a paradox for me, is totally understandable. Because it comes from what you are and what you believe. Be hard to tell somebody who's having a bad life that, well, you know, I hate to be unkind to you, friend, but that bad life you're having is actually a mirror to you of who you are. And I'm going to tell you, if you want a true revelation that'll change your life, take that one right there and spend a few weeks on it. I am really creating my life. Just dare to ponder that. You are creating your reality now. I'm calling those which he said were coming already. I don't see them, but they're coming, I promise you. The soul within escapes their view, and the Divine Mother has no answer for them. There are anatomists who, uncovering to sight no indwelling spirit under the layers of muscles and the network of nerves, or your sinews and tendons and stuff, which they lift with the point of a scalpel, assert that man has no soul, because they couldn't find one in there when somebody died and they cut them and did an autopsy on them, because they found no soul laying inside of the body. There must not really be one, right? Because to be a soul, it would have to be in the body. That's exactly what all of our belief systems are based on. Such are purblind in sophistry as the student who, confining his research to the cold letter of the Kabbalah, dares say it has no vivifying spirit. To see the true man who once inhabited the subject which lies before him on the dissecting table, the surgeon must use other eyes than those of his body. And there again, all of that is all over the Bible. Glorious truths covered up in the hieratic writings of the ancient papyri can be revealed only to him who possesses the faculty of intuition. So here's the thing that she's alluding to. With the universe is very much a put up or shut up situation. Okay? The universe really doesn't care what you think about anything, because the universe manifests off of what you believe. If you believe it's true, you can possess it, even if it's bad for you. And that's been a massive revelation when you find out, because to be quite honest with you, 6 months ago, I was struggling with there's no way in heck that I chose this life. Somebody somewhere is lying. And of course, as is always wont, source brings those things which help you get. You should be seeing some significant spiritual thing that is changing your perception of the world every single day, because it's always there. And so as you grow and possess, you begin to possess more because you are more conscious. And so it's not that you're not conscious now, you just are unaware of what that even means. And so you can't find the power to do the things that you were created with the power to do, which is why nobody that I knew, except for my grandfather, that I ever saw heal anybody with the exception of myself. I have never exhibited it firsthand. I've never seen it, except in those two situations. And so this is an amazing journey. Friends, what the world, as the two earths split, and all of these people, I don't know whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, to be quite honest with you. I just know what has been spoken over the course of my lifetime by the spirit realm that keeps leading me to the next step. And maybe some of you have had those things too, but you never had the courage, or maybe you had too much fear. Some of those things are things that really need to be looked at. Friend, the thing that's going to kill the most people in the spirit realm and all that is going on is those people who do not deal with the fear in their life. And so ponder this for a second, because everything is paradigm shift. And so ponder this for a second. What would it be like if every time that something happened to you that you had to lash out about, that you got mad about, and I don't say I'm perfected, but I can tell you that I've begun my journey. I don't know about you or if you will, but I have begun my journey to learn how to understand this. What if we begin to use fear as a balancer, as an awakening marker? It's not the awakening, it's a marker that you have an opportunity to awaken to something that you were otherwise ignorant of, or you couldn't see, or you couldn't feel, or you couldn't hear. Okay? And so as you go along, you have something that happens, and when you would normally go into fear, and if you know yourself at all, you know what would make you scared. What if you began to embrace fear and give it thanks and homage for exposing to you that there's something out of place in your life? Because here's the thing that you have to understand. All through the Bible and all other recorded texts that have to do with all always wants all to prosper, even if the prosperity is failure. Did I just mess you up a little bit? Because if I didn't, you're not paying attention. Everything that you your whole life have programmed your life to be, you did most of it, 90% of it, out of fear of what would happen if you didn't program it that way. And instead of, so here's a picture that came, this is, I've been looking at for over a month. There are people that were very bad in my life, and I now have a desire to thank them because they were in my life. I chose them in my life to make the situation that I had such hardness with. And if you can let that get inside of you, it will already begin to revolutionize your thinking process. I want to go back again because it's a simple teaching. It really is the simplest teaching in the world. There are no coincidences. And so if you can even deal with that word in reality, that there are no coincidences, if there are no coincidences, then everything that has ever happened in your life has been planned. Everything, and you chose it. Wow. You say, well, I used to be a thief and I stole it. That's right. That's a mirror of who you are inside. And as you change, your mirror changes. And it's a wonderful thing because if you change your mirror in the positive aspect, guess what? It means that we have the power to live the life that we've never been able to live. And that all comes out of you. Wow. You mean if I begin to change me, just so you understand why the reality of the shadow work, and I don't say that maybe anybody that has ever heard me understands at all what I'm saying. But when and if someone does, then they will begin to have the keys to the change of everything. That's how huge all of this stuff is. There is nothing that is withheld from us. Ponder for a second, what if I told you that you are the I am just as Yeshua was the I am, and that you are a creator and you have the capacity, the ability, you don't possess knowledge of it, but you do possess it. All of us do. Why does the psychic stuff come online? Sometimes because there was something that had to be broken. If you go around mediums and you watch on television, they'll always make a statement if it's a near-death experience and somebody comes back with great psychic power, and they will say that it was the trauma that ignited that psychic power into work. Hello. Are you tired of the way things have always been? Do you have an innate feeling inside of you that there must be more to life than this stuff that we're reading, than what we've been told our whole life, than what society has programmed us subconsciously, that what your parents told you, though they programmed you subconsciously on sometimes the worst levels, and that it's simply not true, and you have the power to change all of it. That's a mouthful, and maybe somebody would real quickly, if we were in a congregation, they would raise their hand and say me, and of course typically that's the least one from it. But the truth of the matter is that we already, it's not clichéic if you've heard someone say that you already possess inside of you everything that is. Here's an amazing revelation that goes with that certainly helped me understand. And that is that we are part of the consciousness. We are just an outworking of God. He's using us to view the world. Every one of us. You have unique problems that I don't have. I have unique problems that you don't have. Maybe you've had friends in your life, and that friend could never understand why you struggled so bad with something. Of course they can't, because they're not supposed to. Each one of us individually are walking out something in front of God every single day. The universe is using us to gain insights that could never be gained any other way. So you have a significance in the realm of the universe. You are the universe, actually, if you want to be honest about it. And these things have actually popped up and they've been hidden, but they are in the teachings of some of the followers of the awakening that's going on. Paul spoke of it like this. He said, "Behold, old things pass away and all things become new." Well, that's what's going on in this awakening. The old things are passing away. The lie and the deception, the veil is being removed, and people are starting to see what the truth that always has been. And there have always been people that cared and accessed that. Helena Blavatsky's all the way back till as long as mankind could write, there have been mystic teachers who have been functioning in the spirit realm. You go to Africa and they have witch doctors, we call them. They are actually spirit shamans who move in and out of the other realms. You go to the Vedic in India. The Indians are capable of leaving their body in astral projection. The true them can leave that body in a temple and go experience and come back and get into that body. We're now doing the same with near-death experiences, but it's not done intentionally. That's the slight variance there. Those people did not choose to leave their body without it being hit by a car or shot by a gun. Those people left because of a traumatic event. You do, and we all do, possess the opportunity, the potential to do that, but simply because of our minds choosing to leave this physical body. That is to say, as I grow and as I become adept, I may be sitting here talking, and the next second, this body will fall off of this chair, and I will no longer be here by my choice. That's the power that we possess. But you don't know it. So, all of the things were the beginning steps for people to come to this place in time when they could no longer hide the truth. And for all the good and the bad of media out there, media does have it isn't a coincidence that we have the media we have in this time that we have. And one of the major purposes, although it's used for all kinds of horrible things, it's a mirror of every person who uses it. So it's really bad, if all you do is sit on your laptop and look at porn, then that's a mirror of what you are inside. On the other side, you can take the same computer and you can go research and study antiquity and learn about spiritual things, and that's also a mirror to what you are inside. So whether you like it or don't, you are looking at a mirror. I was giving you a picture metaphor, I didn't know it, but that's a material picture of what we actually do spiritually. Now I understand why the mirror thing I gave you all about standing in front of the mirror and look in the deepest part of your eyes and don't run, you chicken. And don't run. Look at yourself. Look past your body and look into yourself. Most people can't do it and most people won't do it. But you are doing that in the physical realm from your insides. When you look at what your life is, if you live a life that's chaotic, you're chaotic inside. If you live a life of drama, you're full of drama inside. If you live a life of peace, you're peace inside. If you live a life of happiness, you're happy inside. You can't be happy inside and sad outside. And neither can you be sad inside and happy outside. You can put on an appearance, but that's nothing but another hologram. I act like I'm happy. I act like I'm not depressed. I act like I'm not anxious, which is totally different than someone who truly is that. And so, how huge is this thing? All the things that Christianity that I used to talk about that Christianity did not give you, they told you there was a spiritual but gave you nothing to be that. There's nothing that I could say that's more true than that now. If you lived in Pentecostalism and you heard the preacher stand up and talk about supernatural healing and told people not to take medication and told people to do this and told people to do that, they were searching just as bad as you are without knowing for the spirit realm, but the religion would never let them assess it. So, if you want to truly become spiritual and know what the truth is, you must leave off studying the Bible and begin to study truth. See, when you lock yourself down that the only truth is what's written in the Bible, you close your mind to all the other truth that exists that they hid from you. Now, if nobody had ever hid it, it would have appeared there. Christianity, we would have all been learning about how to function in the spirit realm. And when I stood in the pulpit in Austin, Texas, in front of people and I said, and these signs will follow those that believe. They'll lay their hands on the sick and the sick will recover. We would have been watching that happen. And guess what? It never did. Do you understand the significance of what's going on now? This isn't just a little bit of a change, friends. And you can get left behind and be a dinosaur all you want to. You can hang your feet, you can drag your feet, you can make all your excuses that you want to. But I'm just trying to be honest. None of it's going to help you. There is some things that will help all of us. But we have to make the conscious choice to pursue them. Those that seek, find. I hate to tell you, first off, I do know that no Christians believe the Bible anyways. But Yeshua gave us the essence of life as a whole. If you just take all of his teachings out of there and then fix the other minor corruptions that they put with those, you will find the truth that exists in the Bible. And so Yeshua did tell us the truth. You are light. You already are. If you're waiting for your light to shine up, folks, quit waiting. Maybe you ought to get busy uncovering it so that it can shine and help other people. See, there is a perspective change, and most people are still back at the other place. Well, if I would just stop drinking and smoking and cussing, I could be a better person. Why don't you try being a better person and you will stop drinking, smoking, and cussing? You got it ass backwards, pardon my language, but it's true. We're like trying to ride the donkey by holding its tail. It don't work very good. And it's all been put on us. You didn't put any of this on yourself any more than I did. But the more that it becomes clear, man, I have to tell you, some days I go through massive weepings all day long. And I thank goodness for Source, because Source wants us to be prosperous and to grow. And I'm not talking about money. If that's where your mind went, then you certainly have a major issue. I'm talking about growing in what you are. You may not have a revelation of how important this even is. I don't know. Maybe you really don't understand that this is everything. This is the thing. It ain't your job. It ain't your kids. It ain't your money. It ain't your house. It ain't your car. It ain't yourself. In fact, for the most part, all of that is irrelevant. What it is about is whether you take that step and move in to the place that you already are. Think about that one. So, I'm done. Namaste. I hope you guys will be blessed. I hope you'll take some of this love and think about it. If it struggles with it, sometimes it takes months of thinking about it before you begin to get some clarity. But I promise you today that when Yeshua said, you are light, he wasn't talking about you will be after you're resurrected. He said you were already. And if you understand the connotations and how huge that really is, it'll begin to revolutionize your life. So peace to you guys. Love, love, love. Here's a song that I've been listening to. It really is amazing. I'll share it with you. It's the most beautiful song. It's actually a Pleiadian song, I believe it is. But the words go essentially like this. And I sing it every day, at least 3 times a day, sometimes 20 times a day. Yesterday I listened to it all day long. But the line is very simple. You can't miss it. And it says this simple thing. It says, I am peace, and I am love, and I am light. I am that I am. And when you begin to believe that about yourself, you won't be the same person, I promise you. Shalom.